I thought I knew my wife until I heard her laughing with another man about how black husbands don't belong at business events and that I was just useful for other things. What she didn't know was that I was standing right outside their hotel room door, recording every single word. For 3 years, I'd been the grateful mechanic married to the wealthy CEO, but that night in Nashville changed everything. Instead of exploding, instead of confronting them, I did something that would flip the script completely. I stayed calm, I stayed smart, and I let them destroy themselves. By the time I was done, she'd lose everything while I quietly built an empire she could only dream of. What happened next will shock you, and the way I got my revenge. Pure poetry. If you're watching this, hit that subscribe button and tell me where you're watching from, because this story of betrayal, dignity, and the sweetest quiet victory you've ever seen is just getting started. The billing alert popped up on Sloane's iPad just as I was wiping grease off my hands in our kitchen. Tuesday evening, 6:40 p.m., and I'd just gotten home from the garage. The smell of motor oil still clung to my work shirt, but that wasn't what made my stomach drop. Second line activation, $45. I stared at the screen. We'd been married 3 years, and Sloane had never mentioned needing a second phone line. Below that notification sat another one, a hotel confirmation in Nashville for this Thursday, the Hermitage Hotel, room 412. My hands went still on the dish towel. Marcus? Sloane's voice drifted from upstairs. Can you grab my charger from the kitchen? Yeah, I called back, my voice somehow steady. Give me a second. I scrolled down. The reservation was for 2 nights, Thursday and Friday, but according to her calendar, the one she shared with me, she had board meetings in Atlanta all week. No travel, no Nashville. The iPad slipped slightly in my damp hands. I set it down carefully on the granite countertop, the same counters we'd picked out together when we bought this house, back when I thought we told each other everything. Marcus? Her heels clicked on the hardwood stairs. Did you find it? I grabbed her charger from the drawer and handed it to her when she reached the kitchen. Sloane looked perfect, like always. Her blonde hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and her white blouse didn't have a single wrinkle. She was the kind of beautiful that made people turn their heads on the street. Long day? She asked, plugging in her phone. The usual. I watched her face. How about you? Anything special coming up this week? She didn't even blink. Just the quarterly reviews. Pretty boring stuff. Oh, and I might have to fly out Thursday for a last-minute investor meeting. Nothing confirmed yet. There it was. The lie, served up smooth as cream. I nodded. Nashville? Now she blinked. Once, twice. Probably. Why? Just wondering. I turned to the sink, started washing my hands again even though they were already clean. You want me to drive you to the airport? No, that's okay. I'll just take a car service. The water ran hot over my knuckles. In the reflection of the window above the sink, I could see Sloane watching me. Her phone buzzed, and she glanced at it quickly before sliding it face down on the counter. I'm going to grab a shower, I said. Okay, I ordered Thai food. Should be here in 20 minutes. I nodded and headed upstairs. In our bedroom, her bedroom really, since everything in it came from her family's money, I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out my phone. Andre answered on the second ring. What's up, man? You busy tonight? Nah, just watching TV with Maya. Why? You sound weird. Andre Miles had been my best friend since high school. He owned a towing company now, and between his business and my work at the garage, we'd built something solid in this city. He'd been the best man at my wedding, the one who'd told me I was lucky to find a woman like Sloane. I need you to come pick me up. Say there's a noise in my truck or something. Give me a reason to leave the house for an hour. Silence on the other end. Andre knew me well enough to know I didn't play games. This about Sloane? Maybe. I don't know yet. Can you do it? I'll be there in 15 minutes. The shower felt longer than usual. When I came back downstairs, the Thai food had arrived and Sloane was setting out plates. She looked up and smiled, the same smile that had made me fall in love with her 4 years ago at that charity event. I was there fixing the sound system, and she was there writing checks. Andre's coming by, I said, sitting down across from her. Thinks he hears something funny in my truck. Tonight? Won't take long. We ate in mostly silence. Sloane checked her phone twice, and each time she did, something tight formed in my chest. When Andre's horn honked outside, I stood up. Don't wait up, I said. Marcus. She reached for my hand. Everything okay? Her touch was warm, familiar. For a moment, I wanted to ask her straight out. Tell me about Nashville. Tell me about the second phone. Tell me why you're lying to my face. Instead, I squeezed her fingers once. Yeah, everything's fine. Andre's truck smelled like coffee and cigarettes. He pulled away from the curb slowly, giving me time to talk. So, what's going on? I told him about the iPad, the hotel reservation, the lie about investor meetings. As I talked, Andre's jaw got tighter. You sure about this? He asked when I finished. The confirmation email had her name on it. 2 nights. Nashville. This Thursday. Man, Andre shook his head. You want to confront her? With what? A hotel reservation? Maybe she really does have meetings there. Maybe the second phone is for work. We drove in circles around our neighborhood. Nice houses, good schools, the kind of place where people like Sloane grew up. I'd never lived anywhere like this before I met her. What's your gut telling you? Andre asked. That was the thing. My gut was screaming. Not just about Nashville, but about the way she'd been different lately. More distant, more careful with her phone. The way she'd started working late more often, started taking calls in another room. I need to know for sure, I said. Andre pulled into a gas station and parked under the fluorescent lights. How? I looked at my reflection in the side mirror. 30 years old, working with my hands for a living, married to a woman whose family had more money than I'd probably make in my lifetime. Sometimes, I wondered what she really saw when she looked at me. Her assistant, Jess. She likes me, always has. You're going to ask her assistant to spy on her boss? I'm going to ask her about Sloane's travel schedule. Nothing more. Andre studied my face. And if your gut's right, if she's cheating? The question hung in the air between us. I thought about our wedding day, how happy we'd both looked in the pictures. I thought about the promises we'd made, the life we'd planned. Then I'll deal with it. How? I don't know yet. Andre drove me home. The house was dark except for the porch light. Sloane's car sat in the driveway, her BMW gleaming even in the dim light. Be careful, brother, Andre said as I got out. Whatever you find out, don't do anything stupid. I won't. But as I walked up to my front door, I wasn't sure that was a promise I could keep. Inside, the house was quiet. Sloane had left the kitchen light on for me, and there was a note by my plate. Thanks for dinner. Love you. I sat at our kitchen island and pulled out my phone. Jess Park worked late most nights, answering emails and handling Sloane's schedule. If anyone would know about Nashville, it would be her. I typed carefully, Hey Jess, hope you're well. Sloane mentioned a possible trip Thursday but forgot to tell me which hotel in case I need to reach her. Can you help me out? I hit send before I could change my mind. The reply came back in 10 minutes. Hi Marcus. She's staying at the Hermitage Hotel, room 412. Flight leaves at 11 a.m. Thursday. Hope that helps. Room 412. The same room number from the confirmation email. I set my phone down and looked around our kitchen. Everything was perfect, just like Sloane liked it. Clean counters, expensive appliances, fresh flowers in a crystal vase. A picture of us from our honeymoon sat on the windowsill, both of us laughing at something I couldn't remember. I opened the voice memo app on my phone and set it beside my keys. Tomorrow night, Sloan would be in Nashville, in room 412, and unless she was meeting with investors at midnight, she wouldn't be alone. The clock on the microwave read 9:10 p.m. In less than 48 hours, I'd know the truth. I picked up my phone and looked at the route to Nashville. 4 hours. I could be there by evening if I left after lunch. Upstairs, Sloane was already asleep, curled up on her side of our king-size bed. The moonlight through the window caught the diamond of her wedding ring. For 3 years, I'd fallen asleep next to this woman, trusted her with my heart, my future, my name. I got ready for bed quietly, my mind racing. In the bathroom mirror, I looked the same as always. Dark skin, strong jaw, calloused hands. The same man who'd fallen in love with Sloane Whitaker at that charity event, who'd been shocked when she asked for my number. Back then, I thought I was the lucky one. Now, I wasn't sure what to think. I slipped into bed beside my wife, careful not to wake her. She stirred slightly, murmuring something in her sleep. For a moment, I wanted to shake her awake, demand the truth, get this over with right now. Instead, I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathe, planning my drive to Nashville. The next morning, Sloane was gone before I woke up. She left another note. Early meetings. Love you. I made coffee and sat in our quiet kitchen, looking at Jess's text again. The Hermitage Hotel, room 412, flight at 11 a.m. My phone rang. Andre. You sleep at all? He asked. Some. Listen, I need a favor. Name it. Can you cover for me tomorrow afternoon? Tell the guys I had to run an errand. Marcus? I need to see this for myself, Andre. I need to know. A long pause. Okay, but you call me when you get there, and you call me before you do anything stupid. I will. Promise me. I looked at the photo of Sloane and me on the windowsill. Her smile was radiant, genuine. Mine was too. We'd been happy then. Or at least, I thought we had. I promise, I said. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure what I'd do when I found out the truth. The only thing I knew for certain was that by tomorrow night, everything would be different, one way or another. Thursday morning came too fast and not fast enough. I packed light, one change of clothes, my phone charger, and my small dashboard camera that I sometimes use to record engine problems for insurance claims. The camera was small enough to fit in my pocket, and it recorded both video and audio. At the garage, I told my supervisor I had a family emergency. It wasn't entirely a lie. The drive to Nashville gave me 4 hours to think, 4 hours to change my mind, 4 hours to turn around and go home. I didn't turn around. The Hermitage Hotel was the kind of place Sloane's family would choose. Elegant, expensive, with doormen in uniforms and marble floors that echoed when you walked. I parked across the street and watched the entrance for 20 minutes, working up the courage to go inside. When I finally walked through the revolving door, the lobby was everything I'd expected. Crystal chandeliers, leather furniture, people in suits talking in low voices. I approached the front desk. I'd like a room for tonight, I said to the young woman behind the counter. Of course, sir. Any preferences? I thought about Jess's text, room 412. Fourth floor, if possible. Something quiet. She clicked on her computer. I have a lovely room on the fourth floor. Room 415. Would that work? Room 415. 3 doors down from 412. Perfect. The transaction was smooth, professional. The clerk handed me a key card and directions to the elevator. As I walked away, she called after me. Enjoy your stay, sir. I rode the elevator to the fourth floor with two businessmen discussing a merger. They got off on 3, leaving me alone for the final floor. When the doors opened, I stepped into a long hallway with thick carpet and dim lighting. Room 415 was at the far end. I walked slowly, counting doors. 409, 411, 412. I stopped outside 412. The door was heavy wood, like all the others. There was no sound from inside. My room was 3 doors down, directly across the hall. I unlocked it and stepped inside. It was nice. King bed, sitting area, view of downtown Nashville. The kind of room that cost more per night than I made in 2 days. I set my bag on the bed and pulled out the dashboard camera. It was small, designed to clip onto a car's rearview mirror, but it could record for hours on battery power. I tested it quickly, making sure the audio was clear. 5:30 p.m. Sloane's flight would have landed an hour ago. If she was really here for business, she'd be in meetings. If she wasn't, I cracked my door open and positioned myself where I could see across the hall. The camera was in my pocket, not recording yet. I wanted to be sure before I captured anything. At 5:55, I heard voices in the hallway. A man's laugh, low and confident, a woman's giggle that I recognized. I pulled out my phone and started the voice memo app, then slipped it back into my pocket. The voices got closer. I could make out words now. Told you this would be perfect. The man's voice was smooth, educated, not familiar. I can't believe we're actually doing this. Sloane's voice, slightly breathless. No regrets? None. God, I needed this. I heard the beep of a keycard, the click of a door opening. After you, beautiful. The door to room 412 opened and closed. I waited, counting my heartbeats. Then, I heard something that made my blood freeze. Sloane's voice, muffled but clear enough. The best part is, he has no idea. No black husbands at these events. He's just useful for other things. A man's laughter. That's cold, even for you. But true. God, Brandon, you have no idea how freeing this feels. Brandon. I didn't recognize the name, but the contempt in my wife's voice was unmistakable. 3 years of marriage, and this was how she really felt about me. I pulled the camera from my pocket and started recording. Not video, I couldn't see anything from the hallway, but audio. Clear, time-stamped audio of my wife laughing about her black husband being useful. I stood in that hotel hallway for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Part of me wanted to kick down the door, confront them both, demand an explanation, but a bigger part of me, the part Andre had trained me to listen to, stayed calm. Evidence first, emotion later. Finally, I walked to room 412 and knocked. 3 firm knocks. The voices inside went silent. I knocked again. Footsteps. The door opened. Sloane stood there in a hotel bathrobe, her hair messed up, her face flushed. Behind her, I could see a man buttoning his shirt. Tall, white, expensive looking, everything I wasn't. For a moment, nobody said anything. Sloane's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Marcus, she finally whispered. We'll talk at home, I said. My voice came out steady, calm. I was proud of that. I turned and walked away without another word. No shouting, no threats, no scene, just the truth, finally out in the open. Behind me, I heard the door close. In the elevator, I looked at my reflection in the polished steel doors. Same face, same man. But everything was different now. I had 3 hours of audio recording on my phone. I had proof. I had the truth. Now, I had to decide what to do with it. The drive back to Atlanta was the longest 4 hours of my life. But by the time I pulled into our driveway at 11:40 p.m., I knew exactly what I was going to do. Nothing hasty, nothing angry, nothing I'd regret. I was going to be smart about this. I parked 2 houses down so I wouldn't wake the neighbors, then walked quietly to our front door. Inside, the house felt different. Same furniture, same pictures, same everything. But now I knew what Sloane really thought of our marriage. I put my phone on the kitchen island and wrote a note. Talk tomorrow, 7 p.m. Then I took a pillow and blanket to the couch. I'd sleep there tonight, fully dressed. I needed the boundary, needed the distance. Tomorrow, we'd talk, and then we'd see what kind of woman I'd really married. I woke up on the couch at 6:30 a.m. to the sound of the coffee maker gurgling. My neck was stiff and my clothes were wrinkled from sleeping in them. But my mind was clear. Sloane's heels clicked against the kitchen tile as she came in from the garage. I could hear her moving around, probably reading my note. The clicking stopped. Marcus? Her voice was small, uncertain. We need to talk. I sat up slowly, folding the blanket. At 7, like the note said. But I can explain. 7 p.m., Sloane. I stood up and walked past her to the stairs. She smelled like expensive perfume and guilt. In the bathroom mirror, I looked exactly like what I was. A man who'd driven 8 hours to catch his wife cheating. The shower water was hot, almost too hot. I let it run over my shoulders and tried to wash away the memory of her voice, saying those words. No black husbands at these events. He's just useful for other things. Useful. Like a tool she could pick up and put down. When I came downstairs, Sloane was sitting at the kitchen island with a cup of coffee. She'd changed into her work clothes, a navy dress that probably cost more than my truck payment. Her makeup was perfect, like always. Marcus, please, let me explain what you saw. I poured myself coffee and leaned against the counter. What I heard, you mean? She went very still. What? I pulled out my phone and found the audio file. 18 seconds of clear recording. Her voice, laughing about her black husband being useful. Brandon's voice agreeing. I hit play. The sound filled our kitchen. Sloane's face went white as she listened to herself. When it ended, the silence was deafening. That's not what it sounds like, she whispered. What does it sound like? You don't understand the context. Brandon was... Tonight, I said, putting my phone away. 7 p.m., no interruptions. I grabbed my work boots from by the door. I'm going to the garage. Marcus, wait. But I was already outside, breathing the cool morning air, walking toward my truck. Behind me, our house looked the same as always. Big, expensive, beautiful. Everything Sloane's family money could buy. Everything except respect for the man living inside it. At the garage, I threw myself into work. Oil changes, brake jobs, a transmission that needed rebuilding. The familiar weight of tools in my hands, the smell of motor oil, the satisfaction of fixing something broken. This was real. This made sense. My phone buzzed with texts from Sloane throughout the day. Can we please talk before tonight? I know how it looked, but you don't have the whole story. Marcus, please answer me. I didn't respond to any of them. At lunch, Andre stopped by with sandwiches. We ate in the break room while I told him what had happened in Nashville. Man, he said when I finished, I'm sorry, I really am. I recorded it, her saying those things about me. Andre was quiet for a long moment. What are you going to do? Talk to her tonight. See if she can explain why my wife thinks I'm just useful. You want me to be there? Just in case? I shook my head. This is between me and her. But after tonight? I looked out the window at the street, regular people doing regular things, going to work, paying bills, trusting their spouses. I don't know yet. The afternoon crawled by. Finally, at 6 o'clock, I cleaned my hands and drove home. Sloane's BMW was in the driveway. The house lights were on. From the outside, we probably looked like a normal couple about to have dinner together. Inside, Sloane had ordered takeout from the Thai place, the same food we'd eaten 2 nights ago, back when I still trusted her. She'd set the table in the dining room instead of eating at the kitchen island. Candles, cloth napkins, her good china. I thought we could eat first, she said, before we talk. I sat down across from her. The food was good, but it tasted like cardboard. We ate in silence, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between us. At 7 exactly, I put down my fork. Okay, I said. Talk. Sloane took a shaky breath. What you heard in Nashville, it wasn't what it seemed. Explain it to me. Brandon Hale is an investor. He's been pushing for months to get more involved in my company. Yesterday was supposed to be a business dinner. In a hotel room? He suggested we meet somewhere private, away from the Atlanta gossip mill. She twisted her wedding ring. I know how it looked, Marcus, but nothing happened. I leaned back in my chair. Nothing happened? Nothing sexual. We were just talking business. In bathrobes? Her face flushed. I had spilled wine on my dress. The hotel sent up robes while they cleaned it. I'd give her credit. It was a good story. Believable even, if I hadn't heard what I'd heard. And the part about black husbands? I asked. That was business talk too? She went very quiet. That was. Brandon was making inappropriate comments about diversity in business. I was trying to deflect. By agreeing with him? By saying what I thought he wanted to hear. Sometimes in business, you have to play along to get what you want. I studied her face. Same beautiful features, same blue eyes I'd fallen in love with. But now, I was seeing something else underneath. Something calculating. What did you want from him, Sloan? Funding for the expansion. His firm could provide the capital we need. And what did he want from you? She looked down at her plate. I think you know. Say it. He wanted more than a business relationship. And you gave it to him? No, I told you, nothing happened. I pulled out my phone again. Should I play the recording? The part where you're laughing about how freeing it feels? Sloane's composure cracked. Marcus, please. 3 years, I said. 3 years I've been married to you. I've met your family, gone to your events, tried to fit into your world. And this is what you really think of me? That's not fair. Useful for other things. What things, Sloane? She was crying now, but they seemed like careful tears. You're taking it out of context. No, I stood up. I'm taking it exactly how you meant it. The doorbell rang. We both froze. It was 9:05 p.m. on a Friday night. Nobody stopped by this late unless it was an emergency. Are you expecting someone? I asked. Sloane wiped her eyes quickly. No, maybe it's a neighbor? I walked to the front door and looked through the peephole. A woman in her late 50s stood on our porch, perfectly dressed even at this hour. I recognized her immediately. Vivian Whitaker, Sloane's mother. I opened the door. Mrs. Whitaker. Marcus. Her smile was polite but cold. I hope I'm not interrupting. Actually, may I come in? I'd like to speak with both of you. I stepped aside. Vivian swept into our foyer like she owned it. She probably thought she did. Her family money had paid for most of this house. Sloane, darling, she called toward the dining room. I think we need to have a conversation. Sloane appeared in the doorway looking panicked. Mother, what are you doing here? Damage control, Vivian said simply. May we sit in the living room? We moved to the couch and chairs. Vivian perched on the edge of the sofa, her purse in her lap, looking like she was chairing a board meeting. I spoke with Brandon this afternoon, she began. He told me about the unfortunate misunderstanding yesterday. I looked at Sloane. You told him to call your mother? I didn't. Brandon is concerned about discretion. Vivian continued smoothly. As am I. These kinds of complications can affect business relationships. Complications? I repeated. Vivian's smile never wavered. Marcus, dear, I understand you might be upset, but sometimes marriages go through difficult periods. The important thing is handling them privately. Privately? Brandon mentioned you were recording conversations. That's really not necessary, is it? We're all adults here. I stared at this woman, Sloane's mother, who had never liked me from the day we met, who had made subtle comments about my background, my job, my place in their family. Now she was sitting in my living room, trying to manage me like I was a problem employee. Mrs. Whitaker, I said carefully, are you asking me to delete the recording? I'm asking you to consider what's best for everyone involved. She turned to Sloane. Darling, perhaps you could make some coffee? Give us a moment to talk? Sloane looked between us nervously. I don't think coffee would be lovely, Vivian said firmly. Sloane disappeared into the kitchen. Vivian waited until she was gone, then leaned forward. You're a practical man, Marcus. You work with your hands. You understand value. Let's be practical about this situation. I'm listening. Sloane made an error in judgment, but marriages can survive these things with the right approach. What approach is that? Discretion, understanding, perhaps some time apart while things settle down. She paused. I understand you have a small business at that garage. Growing a business takes capital. There it was, the offer I'd been waiting for. How much? I asked. Vivian smiled, thinking she'd won. We could discuss specifics, but I think we could find an arrangement that works for everyone. I looked toward the kitchen where I could hear Sloane moving around. My wife, who thought I was useful, her mother, who thought I could be bought. You know what, Mrs. Whitaker, I said. I think you should leave. Her smile faltered. Excuse me? It's after 10 o'clock. This conversation can wait. Young man, I don't think you understand. I understand perfectly. I stood up. You want to buy my silence about your daughter's affair. You want me to be discreet about being humiliated. You want to manage this situation like it's a business problem. Vivian's mask was slipping now. You need to think very carefully about your next steps. Sloane has resources, connections, opportunities. You have... What exactly? Self-respect, I said. Something you can't buy. She stood up too, her face hard now. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Vivian gathered her purse and walked to the front door. Before leaving, she turned back. Some people know their place in the world, Marcus. Smart people accept what they can't change. Good night, Mrs. Whitaker. After she left, I locked the door and turned off the porch light. In the kitchen, Sloane was sitting at the island with 3 cups of coffee she'd never serve. What did she say to you? She asked. She offered to pay me to keep quiet. Sloane closed her eyes. Oh, God. Did you know she was coming? No, I swear, I didn't call her. I believed her. Vivian Whitaker was the kind of woman who acted first and asked permission later. What did you tell her? Sloane asked. To leave. We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet. Inside, our marriage was falling apart one conversation at a time. Marcus, Sloane said finally, if I could take it back? But you can't. No, I can't. I looked at my wife sitting across from me. Beautiful, successful, everything I'd thought I wanted, but I was starting to see her clearly for the first time. I'm going to stay at Andre's tonight, I said. Please don't go. I need some space to think. About what? I picked up my keys from the counter. About whether I want to be useful anymore. As I walked toward the door, Sloane called after me. I love you, Marcus. Whatever you think about yesterday, I do love you. I stopped but didn't turn around. Love isn't enough, I said. Not when it comes with conditions. Outside, the night air was cool and clean. I sat in my truck for a moment, looking back at our house. All the lights were on now and I could see Sloane moving around inside. 3 years ago, I'd thought I was the luckiest man alive. Tonight, I was starting to think I might be the smartest. I started the engine and drove toward Andre's apartment. Tomorrow, I'd figure out my next move. Tonight, I just needed to sleep somewhere my wife couldn't find me, somewhere I could think clearly about what kind of life I really wanted, and whether it included being married to a woman who thought I was useful. Saturday morning at Andre's apartment, I woke up on his couch feeling more rested than I had in months. Maya had made coffee and left pastries on the counter before heading to work. Andre sat across from me in his kitchen, waiting for me to talk. So, what's the plan? He asked. I sipped my coffee and thought about it. First thing, I'm changing the locks. Today? This morning. I texted a locksmith last night. He'll be at the house at 8:30. Andre nodded. Smart. What else? I'm moving my tools to your shop. The expensive ones anyway. Just in case Sloane or her mother try something. Good thinking. What about the house? I stared into my coffee. It's in both our names, but her family money paid for most of it. I'm not going to fight her for something that was never really mine. And Sloane? She wants to go to some beach retreat next weekend, corporate offsite thing in Savannah. She asked me to come. Andre raised an eyebrow. You're going? Separate rooms, written boundaries. I want to see how she acts around her business people when she thinks I'm under control. That sounds dangerous, man. Maybe, but I need to understand who I really married. The locksmith was waiting when I got to the house at 8:25. Professional guy. Didn't ask questions about why I was changing locks on a Saturday morning. While he worked on the front door, I updated the smart lock on the garage and changed the keypad code. Sloane wasn't home. Her car was gone and there was no note. By 10 o'clock, I had new keys and new codes. I texted the information to Sloane with a simple message. New house codes. Call before coming over. Andre showed up with his truck to help move my tools. We worked quietly, loading my specialty equipment into locked cases. These weren't just tools, they were my livelihood, my independence, everything I'd built with my own hands and money. You sure about keeping the garage job? Andre asked as we loaded the last case. For now, I like the work and I need the income. But I looked back at the house. Big, beautiful, empty. But I'm not going to pretend anymore. If Sloane wants to be married to someone useful, she can find someone else. Sunday morning, I was working on a classic Mustang when my phone buzzed. Sloane, can we talk about Savannah? I want to discuss boundaries. I called her back. She answered on the first ring. Marcus, thank you for calling. What boundaries do you want to discuss? I've been thinking about what you said, about needing space. Maybe this retreat could be a chance for us to reset in separate rooms. Yes, completely separate. I just want you there so we can try to work through this. I could hear the hope in her voice, the assumption that we could fix this with the right conversation, the right setting, the right boundaries. Fine, I said, but I want the boundaries in writing. Email them to me. Of course. Marcus, I really think just send the email, Sloane. That afternoon, the boundaries arrived in my inbox. Separate hotel rooms on different floors. No public displays of affection. Limited interaction during business events. Honest conversations only. Respect for space and time to think. I forwarded the email back to her with one addition. Agreed. M. The week passed slowly. I worked, ate dinner alone, slept at Andre's. Sloane texted occasionally, always polite, always hopeful, always assuming we'd find a way back to normal. Wednesday evening, I got a different kind of text from Jess, Sloane's assistant. Be careful. With Brandon at the retreat. He records conversations sometimes. I stared at the message. Jess had always been friendly to me, but this was different. This was a warning. I texted back, thank you. Stay safe. Her reply was immediate. You too. Thursday, I packed light for Savannah. One bag, one suit for whatever business dinner Sloane expected me to attend. I decided to watch, listen, and learn. No confrontations, no scenes, just observation. Friday afternoon, we drove to Savannah separately. Sloane in her BMW, me in my truck. The beach resort was exactly what I'd expected. Elegant, expensive, full of people in suits who thought they were important. At check-in, the desk clerk handed me a key to room 237. Sloane was on the fourth floor. Good. Distance was what I needed. The first business dinner was that evening on the resort terrace. I wore my one good suit and tried to blend into the background. Sloane introduced me to her colleagues as my husband, which was technically true but felt hollow. Brandon Hale was everything I'd imagined from his voice: tall, confident, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. When Sloane introduced us, he shook my hand with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "So, you're the mechanic," he said. "Sloane's told me so much about you." "All good things, I hope," I replied evenly. "Oh, yes. She says you're very handy." The pause before handy was deliberate. So was the smirk. This man thought he was clever, thought he was winning some game I didn't even know we were playing. I smiled back. I do what I can. During dinner, I sat quietly and listened. These people talked about investments, market trends, growth opportunities, normal business conversation, but I noticed how Brandon positioned himself near Sloane, how he touched her arm when making points, how she laughed at his jokes, and I noticed something else. My phone in my pocket was recording audio, old habits from documenting engine problems. Sometimes the most important sounds were the ones people didn't realize they were making. After dinner, as we walked back toward the elevators, Sloane fell into step beside me. "How was that?" she asked quietly. "Educational." Brandon was on his best behavior tonight. Was he? She looked at me sideways. "What do you mean?" "Nothing, just observing." In the elevator, I pressed 2 for my floor. Sloane pressed 4. We rode in silence until my floor. "Good night, Marcus." "Good night." As the doors closed between us, I saw her reflection in the polished steel. She looked tired, uncertain, like a woman who'd made choices she wasn't sure about. In my room, I played back the audio from dinner. Mostly normal conversation, but there were moments when Brandon thought no one was listening, where his tone changed. Little comments about maintaining standards and appropriate partnerships. Nothing I could point to directly, but the message was clear. Saturday morning, I walked the resort grounds early, before most people were awake. The beach was beautiful, peaceful. I sat on a bench overlooking the water and tried to figure out what I was really doing here. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Check your email. Friend of Jess." In my email, I found a forwarded message from Brandon to Sloane, sent the day before. "Looking forward to continuing our conversation about your future. Some partnerships require difficult choices. Time to decide what you really want." And Sloane's reply, "I know. It's complicated with Marcus here." "Not really. Tell him you've outgrown the driver husband. He'll understand." Driver husband. Like I was hired help who'd forgotten his place. I forwarded the screenshots to my own email and deleted the message. Then, I walked back to my room and changed for the day's events. If they wanted to play games, I could play too, but I'd play by my own rules. The main business session was that afternoon. Presentations, networking, the usual corporate theater. I attended as Sloane's guest, sitting in the back, watching. During a break, I overheard a conversation between Brandon and 2 other investors. "The diversity angle is played out," Brandon was saying. "Boards want results, not representation." "What about the optics?" one investor asked. "Optics change. Smart money follows performance, not politics." I pulled out my phone and pretended to check messages while recording their conversation. These weren't just private thoughts. This was business strategy, the strategy that included my wife. That evening was the main gala dinner. Sloane wore a blue dress that made her look stunning. I wore my suit and tried to be invisible. The dinner was in a grand ballroom overlooking the ocean. Round tables, multiple courses, speeches from various executives. I sat at Sloane's table but might as well have been furniture. Halfway through the main course, the conversation turned to recent investments. Brandon stood up with his wine glass, clearly having had several drinks already. "I'd like to propose a toast," he announced, "to strategic partnerships and knowing when to cut dead weight." A few people laughed uncomfortably. Sloane's face went red. Brandon, she said quietly, maybe sit down. No, no, this is important. He swayed slightly. Sometimes in business, you have to make hard choices. Personal feelings can't interfere with professional growth. He looked directly at me. Isn't that right, Marcus? Sometimes people outlive their usefulness. The table went completely silent. I could feel everyone staring at me, waiting for my reaction. This was the moment Brandon had been building toward all weekend, the public humiliation he thought would break me. I stood up slowly, picked up my water glass, and raised it. To knowing your worth, I said clearly, and to people who show you exactly who they are. I took a sip, set down the glass, and walked out of the ballroom. Behind me, I heard chairs scraping, urgent whispers, Sloane calling my name, but I didn't look back. Outside, the ocean air was cool and clean. I sat on the resort's front steps and called Andre. How's the retreat? He asked. Educational. I'm coming home tomorrow. Everything okay? Better than okay. I'm finally seeing clearly. What happened? I looked back at the resort lights, at the world Sloane belonged to. I remembered who I am. And who's that? Someone who doesn't need to be useful to anyone but himself. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time, listening to the waves. Tomorrow I'd drive back to Atlanta. Tomorrow I'd start making the changes I should have made months ago. Tonight, I was done pretending to be someone I wasn't. Tomorrow, I'd start being the man I was meant to be, with or without my wife. Sunday morning, I checked out of the Savannah Resort early. The desk clerk was polite, professional, asked if I'd enjoyed my stay. I told him it had been exactly what I needed. Sloane was waiting by my truck in the parking lot. She looked like she hadn't slept. Marcus, please, can we talk before you leave? We've talked enough, Sloane. What Brandon said last night was unacceptable. I told him so. I opened my truck door. After I left? She looked down. Yes. Too late? I'm ending things with him, the business relationship, everything. I want to work on us. I stopped and looked at her. Really looked at her. She was beautiful, successful, everything most men would want. But I wasn't most men anymore. What would you be working on exactly? I asked. Our marriage, our trust, everything? And what would I be working on? She frowned, like it was a trick question. The same things. No, Sloane. You'd be working on saving your marriage. I'd be working on forgetting what you really think of me. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to know what's fair? Fair would be if you'd respected me enough to end our marriage before starting something with Brandon. Fair would be if you hadn't spent 2 years making me feel grateful for scraps from your table. I never. You introduced me as help to your mother's friends. You called me your driver. You laughed with your lover about black husbands not belonging at business events. My voice stayed calm, steady. That's who you are, Sloane. That's who you've always been. She was crying now. Real tears this time, not the careful ones. Marcus, please, I love you. I believe you do, in your way. I got into my truck. But your love comes with conditions, and I'm done meeting them. The drive back to Atlanta gave me 4 hours to think about what came next. By the time I pulled into the city, I knew exactly what I was going to do. First stop, Andre's shop. I had work to finish. You're back early, Andre said when I walked into his garage. Change of plans. Want to talk about it? Not yet. I need to work. I spent the afternoon rebuilding an engine. Oil, grease, the familiar weight of tools in my hands. This was real. This was mine. Nobody could take it away or call it useful. That evening, Andre and I sat on his back porch with beers watching the sunset. So, what's the plan? He asked. I'm moving out, finding my own place. About time. What about the house? She can have it. Her family paid for most of it anyway. And work? I took a long sip of beer. I'm thinking about starting my own shop. Small operation, specialty work, classic cars, custom builds. Andre nodded. You've got the skills. You need capital? Some. I've been saving, and I sold that 72 coupe to Mr. Dorsey's neighbor last week. Good money. What about Sloane? I watched a bird land on Andre's fence, then fly away. What about her? You just giving up? Walking away? I'm choosing myself, Andre, for the first time in 3 years. Monday morning, I found a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy, but clean, affordable, mine. I could move in by the weekend. Tuesday, I started looking at commercial real estate, small garage spaces, places where I could build something of my own. Wednesday evening, Vivian Whitaker showed up at Andre's shop. I was working late, finishing a brake job when I heard expensive heels on concrete. She appeared in the garage doorway wearing a cream-colored coat and that same cold smile. Marcus, I hoped we could continue our conversation from Friday night. I didn't stop working. We finished that conversation. I think you misunderstood my offer. No, ma'am. I understood it perfectly. She stepped into the garage, looking around like she was inspecting a crime scene. This is quaint. It's honest work. Of course. Very admirable. She paused. Sloane is quite upset, you know. She's been calling in sick to work. I finally looked up. That's between her and her doctor. She says you're planning to leave her. I already have. Vivian's mask slipped for just a moment. Because of some silly misunderstanding with Brandon? Because of 3 years of misunderstandings with your daughter. Marcus, be reasonable. Sloane made a mistake, but Mrs. Whitaker, I interrupted, standing up and wiping my hands on a rag. Your daughter didn't make a mistake. She made a choice, multiple choices, about who I am, what I'm worth, where I belong in her life. You're overreacting to a moment of poor judgment. No, I'm finally reacting appropriately to 3 years of poor treatment. Her composure cracked completely. You ungrateful. She stopped herself, but the damage was done. I could see the real Vivian now, the woman who'd been politely tolerating me for 3 years. Go ahead, I said. Finish the sentence. I think this conversation is over. Yes, ma'am, it is. After she left, I sat in the quiet garage for a long time. These people thought they could manage me, buy me, shame me into staying in their world. They thought I needed what they had. They were wrong. Thursday morning, I found the perfect space, a small garage bay in an industrial complex, just big enough for 3 cars and basic equipment. The rent was reasonable, the location was good, and the landlord didn't care about my credit score as long as I paid first and last month up front. I signed the lease that afternoon. Friday, I started moving my things out of the house. Sloane wasn't there, which was probably for the best. I took my clothes, my tools, my books, and the one photograph of us that meant something to me. A candid shot from our honeymoon where we both looked genuinely happy. Saturday morning, I was setting up my new apartment when my phone rang. Jess Park. Marcus, I'm sorry to bother you. No bother. What's up? I wanted you to know. I'm quitting. Today's my last day. Because of what happened? Partly, but mostly because I can't work for someone who treats people the way Sloane treated you. I was quiet for a moment. Jess had always been kind to me, professional but friendly. Her resignation said more about Sloane's character than any recording ever could. Thank you, I said finally, for everything, including the warnings. You deserved better, Marcus. I hope you know that. After we hung up, I finished unpacking. It didn't take long. I'd never accumulated much during my marriage. Most of what I'd thought of as ours had really been hers. Sunday, I opened my new shop. Nothing grand, no advertising, just word of mouth from my garage job. A neighbor brought by an old Camaro that needed work. Cash up front, honest labor, fair price. It felt good. It felt like mine. 3 weeks later, I was under the hood of a classic Mustang when I heard familiar footsteps. I looked up to see Sloane standing in my shop doorway. She looked different, thinner, tired, less perfectly put together. The woman who'd never left the house without full makeup was wearing jeans and a simple sweater. "Hello, Marcus." "Sloane, I like your shop. It suits you." I went back to work on the engine. "What do you want?" "To apologize. Really apologize. Not just make excuses." I kept working, but I listened. "You were right about everything. About Brandon, about my mother, about me." Her voice was quiet, steady. "I treated you like an accessory to my life instead of a partner in it." "Why?" She was quiet for so long I thought she'd left. When I looked up, she was staring out the shop's open bay door at the street. "Because it was easier than admitting I married someone better than me," she said finally. "What do you mean?" "You never needed my money, Marcus. You never needed my connections or my family's approval. You were complete without me." She looked back at me. "That scared me. So I tried to make you need me by making you feel less than me." I set down my wrench and really looked at her. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve the truth. And because," she took a shaky breath, "because I lost the best thing that ever happened to me. And I want you to know it wasn't because you weren't enough. It was because I wasn't." We stood in the garage for a moment, 3 years of marriage hanging between us like smoke. "I appreciate you saying that," I said finally. "Is there any chance—" "No." I said it gently but firmly. "There isn't." She nodded, tears starting to fall. "I know. I just had to ask." "Sloane?" "Yeah?" "I hope you figure out who you are when you're not trying to be better than someone else." She smiled through her tears. "Me too." After she left, I finished working on the Mustang. The engine ran smooth, clean, powerful. Fixed. That afternoon, Mr. Dorsey stopped by with another referral, a friend with a vintage Corvette that needed restoration. Word was spreading about my work, my prices, my reliability. I was building something mine. Friday evening, I was closing up shop when I heard an engine I recognized, a low, throaty rumble that made me smile. I walked outside to see a sleek sports car pulling up to the curb. Andre got out, grinning. "What do you think?" It was beautiful. A kit car, but professionally built. Looked like a Lamborghini, but cost a fraction of the price. Clean lines, perfect paint job, an engine that purred like a satisfied cat. "Where'd you get it?" "Built it myself. Been working on it for 2 years." He tossed me the keys. "Want to take it for a drive?" We drove through the city as the sun set, windows down, radio low, past the neighborhood where I used to live with Sloane, past the garage where I still worked part-time, through parts of Atlanta I'd never really seen before. "You happy?" Andre asked as we stopped at a red light. I thought about it. My apartment was small but comfortable. My shop was growing slowly but steadily. I slept well at night, woke up without dread, worked with my hands, and built something real every day. "Yeah," I said. "I think I am." The light turned green, and Andre accelerated smoothly. In the side mirror, I caught a glimpse of a familiar BMW several cars back. Sloane, maybe, or someone who looked like her. I didn't turn around to check. Some mornings now, I see that BMW drive slowly past my shop. It never stops, never honks, never waves. It just drives by, like whoever's inside wants to see what I'm building but doesn't want to interfere. I don't wave either. I just keep working. Because I finally learned something important. You can't fix people the way you fix engines. Some things are broken beyond repair, and some things were never really broken, just misunderstood. I understand myself now. I know my worth. I know the difference between being useful and being valued. And on Friday evenings, when the work is done and the shop is quiet, I sometimes take out that kit car Andre helped me finish. I drive through the city with the windows down, the engine humming beneath me, and I remember what it feels like to be completely, perfectly free. Some victories aren't loud. Some victories are just the quiet satisfaction of choosing yourself, building something real, and driving away from people who never deserved you in the first place. That's enough for me. That's everything.